The sky above the street split open like someone tore a hole in a movie screen. 1 second. It was a normal afternoon in the city. Cars honked. A street vendor shouted about hot dogs. People hurried past each other with their heads down. The next second, a bright white shape burst out of the air. It was a young man. He dropped out of the rip with a wild grin, white hair flaring like flames, a pale mist curling around his shoulders. His body moved wrong in the best way, like it did not care about normal rules. His feet didn't even hit the ground right. He bounced. People screamed. Phones came up. A delivery truck swerved as the driver stared. The truck hit a parked car, fishtailed, and shot toward a crowd at the crosswalk. The white-haired man's eyes widened, not in fear, but in focus. He snapped his head toward the truck. "Whoa," he said, like this was exciting. He stretched his arm out. Not just far, impossible far. His hand slapped the asphalt in front of the truck. The street rippled. Then the road turned soft. It bent and lifted like a trampoline. The truck hit the rubbery street and launched upward with a huge boing. It should have flipped and crushed people. Instead, it floated for a beat like a toy. The white-haired man laughed and flicked his fingers. The road snapped again, like it was spring-loaded. The truck bounced sideways and landed in an empty lane with a hard skid. The driver sat there, shaking, alive. A kid in the crowd pointed. "That's a soupe." Another person said, "Is this a stunt? Is Vote filming?" A man with a camera shoved closer. "Hey, look at me. Do that again." The white-haired man turned, still smiling. He waved like he was greeting a party. Then he noticed something else. A group of cops had drawn their guns, not because they understood what happened, because they were scared. "Hands up," one cop shouted. "On the ground." The white-haired man blinked. He stared at the guns like they were weird insects. He took one step forward. The ground under his foot squished a little, like it was soft clay, then snapped back. The cop's hands trembled. I said. The white-haired man moved. He didn't rush like a normal person. He popped forward like a spring. In a blink, he was right in front of the nearest gun. He pinched the barrel between 2 fingers. The cop tried to pull back. The barrel didn't move. The white-haired man twisted. The metal bent like warm candy. He tied it into a neat knot and handed it back with a proud nod, like he'd fixed something. The cop stared at the ruined weapon. His mouth hung open. The crowd went quiet for 1 beat. Then everyone started talking at once. A bright flash of light washed over the scene. A woman landed at the edge of the street with practiced control. Blonde hair, a cape, a calm face that looked like it belonged on a billboard. Starlight. Her eyes swept over the crowd first. Then the cops. Then the white-haired man. She raised her hands. "Everyone, back up. Give us space." The cops recognized her. They obeyed because she was famous, not because they trusted her. Starlight stepped closer. Her voice stayed steady. "Hey, I'm Starlight. I'm here to help." The white-haired man tilted his head. He studied her like he was judging if she was a friend. "Help who?" he asked. Starlight blinked. "The people. And you. This is a lot." He glanced at the crowd. He saw the shaking driver in the truck. He saw the kids holding phones. He saw fear and curiosity mixed together. He looked back at Starlight. "Are you a good guy?" Starlight hesitated. It was a tiny pause, but it was there. Before she could answer, a shadow swept over the street. A hush fell, like the city itself held its breath. People looked up. He floated down from the sky with slow, perfect control, like gravity was something he allowed. Blue suit, cape, smile. Homelander. The crowd reacted like a switch flipped. Cheers. Screams. A wave of worship. "Homelander," someone cried. "Save us." Homelander landed softly, right in the center of the chaos, as if the ground was honored to touch his boots. He gave the crowd a bright, practiced smile. "Everybody stay calm," he said. "Vought has this under control." His eyes slid toward Starlight, then toward the white-haired man. He took in the white hair, the swirling mist, the grin, the tied-up gun barrel. Homelander's smile stayed in place, but something under it tightened. "Well," he said, voice warm like a TV host. "You're new." The white-haired man bounced on his heels. He stared at Homelander with open interest. He wasn't impressed by the cape. He wasn't scared of the smile. He leaned forward a little, like a kid spotting a big animal at the zoo. "You're strong," he said simply. Homelander chuckled. "I get that a lot." The white-haired man's grin widened. "Good." Starlight stepped between them, just a little. "We don't need to do this here. People are." Homelander didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on the newcomer. "Name," Homelander said. "Now." The white-haired man opened his mouth. A siren wailed somewhere close. Cameras moved in. A drone buzzed above. It felt like the whole world was aiming at them. The white-haired man's eyes flicked to the crowd again. Then he looked back at Homelander. He said calm and bright, like it was the easiest truth in the world. "Nobody owns people." Homelander's smile didn't change, but his eyes did. And Starlight felt deep in her chest that something had just started that she could not control. Starlight moved first, because she had to. She stepped closer to the white-haired man, turning her body in a way that kept Homelander in her side vision. She kept her face calm. She kept her voice low. "Hey," she said, "you saved people. That's good. But this street is about to become a battlefield. We need to move you somewhere safe." The white-haired man blinked. "Safe? Why?" Starlight nodded toward the phones, toward the cops, toward the Vought drone hovering above like a hungry bug. "Because they don't understand you," she said. "And when people don't understand, they do stupid things." Behind her, Homelander let out a small laugh, like she'd told a joke. Starlight ignored him. The white-haired man looked around again. He bounced once in place, like his body had extra energy it couldn't keep inside. He leaned toward her. "Are you really a good guy?" Starlight's throat tightened. She thought of the billboard smile, the contracts, the way Vought picked her words for her. She forced herself to answer anyway. "I try to be." The white-haired man nodded, satisfied, like that was enough. Homelander took a step forward. The crowd cheered at the movement. "Starlight," he said, still friendly, "why don't you let me handle this?" Starlight turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. She saw something cold under the shine. "This isn't a photo op," she said. "There are kids here." Homelander's smile sharpened. "Exactly. Kids. We should show them what happens when someone causes chaos in our city." The white-haired man's eyebrows lifted. "Chaos?" He gestured at the truck he'd saved. "I stopped that." Homelander's eyes flicked to the truck, then back. "You don't belong here," he said. "You show up, break weapons, destroy property, and scare people." Starlight opened her mouth. The white-haired man spoke first. "You're lying," he said, simple as breathing. The crowd noise dipped again. Some people laughed nervously, like they expected Homelander to make a joke back. Homelander's jaw tightened for half a second. Then he chuckled. "You're adorable," Homelander said. "But you need to learn how this world works." The white-haired man's grin faded a little. His eyes were still bright, but now there was a sharper focus in them. "I know how my world works," he said. "Bullies hurt people. Then they pretend it's okay." Homelander's smile stayed. His voice lowered, only slightly. "Careful." Starlight felt it then. That edge, that warning. She made her choice fast. She stepped closer to the white-haired man and angled her body toward the alley. "Come with me. Right now." He looked at her, then at Homelander. He shrugged, like this was a minor problem. "Okay," he said, cheerful again. "But if he hurts anyone, I'm gonna hit him." Starlight's stomach dropped. "Don't say that out loud." Too late. Homelander heard it. Of course he did. His eyes flicked to the crowd, then to the cameras, then back to the white-haired man. "Well," Homelander said, "that sounds like a threat." The air felt tighter, like the whole street leaned in. Starlight forced a smile toward the cameras. "Everybody, please step back. We're going to make sure everyone is safe." Homelander's smile widened. "Yes," he agreed. "We are." Starlight didn't trust that we. She guided the white-haired man toward the alley. He bounced as he walked, like the ground was too boring to step on normally. People filmed from every angle. A Vought security van rolled into view at the corner. Not cops. Vought. Starlight's heart sank. Homelander spoke loudly now. For the world. "I'm going to ask one more time," he said. "Who are you?" The white-haired man glanced at Starlight. She shook her head once, small and fast. He shrugged again. "I'm a captain," he said. "That's enough." Homelander laughed like he'd been given a gift. "A captain," he repeated. "Great. Captain of what? The terrorists?" Starlight felt a flash of anger. She felt her light rise in her body, hot behind her eyes. The white-haired man stopped walking. He turned back toward Homelander. He did not look angry the way Homelander expected. He looked disappointed. "Why do you talk like that?" he asked. "You're supposed to protect people." Homelander's smile held. His eyes did not. "I do protect people," he said. He pointed at the crowd. "I protect them from things like you." The white-haired man's hair fluttered in the mist around him. He took one step forward. The asphalt under his foot rippled again, like it was alive. Starlight grabbed his wrist. "Not here," she hissed. The white-haired man looked down at her hand like he'd forgotten she was there. His face softened. "Okay," he said. "I'll listen. For now." Homelander took another step forward, matching. "Good," he said. "Because you're coming with us." A Vought loudspeaker crackled. A suited man stepped out of the van with a forced smile, talking into a mic. "This is a Vought-managed incident. Please remain calm." Starlight's eyes scanned the rooftops. More drones. More cameras. A sniper glint, maybe. She couldn't tell. This wasn't about safety. This was about control. She leaned close to the white-haired man. "I know people who hate Vought," she whispered. "They can help you. But you have to trust me." He looked at her. Really looked. Then he nodded once. "Okay." Starlight turned and walked faster into the alley. The white-haired man followed. Homelander didn't stop them. Not right away. He let them go, just long enough for the cameras to catch the angle of the hero allowing the threat to flee. Then Homelander lifted off the ground and hovered above the alley mouth like a shadow with a smile. "Run," he called down, voice bright. "Let's see what you've got." Starlight's blood went cold. The white-haired man's grin came back. He leaned forward like a runner at the start line. And then he sprang. He didn't sprint down the alley like a normal person. He bounced off one wall, then the other, then the ground. Like the whole world was a toy. Starlight ran behind him, cape snapping, trying to keep up. Homelander followed overhead, slow enough to show off, close enough to terrify. Starlight felt trapped between two disasters. Ahead, the alley opened into a side street. A black van waited there, engine running, door already sliding open. Inside, a man with a beard and dead eyes stared out like he was judging a weapon. Billy Butcher. "Get in," Butcher barked. Starlight didn't hesitate. She shoved the white-haired man toward the van. He hopped inside like it was fun. Starlight jumped in after him. The door slammed shut. The van roared forward. Homelander dropped in front of them. The van skidded. Starlight's heart punched her ribs. Homelander hovered inches above the hood, smiling like a bully on a playground. Then the white-haired man leaned out the side window like he was hanging off a ship. He waved at Homelander. Homelander's smile twitched. The white-haired man reached out, grabbed the air itself, and pulled. It looked impossible, like he grabbed the space in front of the van and yanked it sideways. The van's path bent, not because the driver turned, because the street turned. The road twisted like rubber under them, dragging the van around Homelander as if Homelander was stuck in slow motion. The van shot past. Homelander turned midair, eyes narrowing. Butcher stared back through the windshield, stunned for one hard second. Then his face hardened again. "Right," Butcher muttered. "That's new." The white-haired man bounced back inside, laughing. Starlight stared at him, breathing hard. Butcher's voice came from the driver's seat. "All right, Glow Girl," he snapped, eyes on the road. "Explain why you just brought a walking cartoon bomb into my van." Starlight swallowed. "He saved people." Butcher snorted. So did Homelander. On camera. Doesn't mean it's real. The white-haired man leaned forward between the seats. Curious. Who are you? Butcher glanced at him in the rearview mirror. The bloke trying to keep this city from turning into a graveyard. The white-haired man smiled. Good. Then we're on the same side. Butcher didn't smile back. Outside, behind them, the sky flashed red for a split second. Starlight knew that look. Homelander's eyes. She whispered almost to herself. He's coming. The white-haired man's grin widened like he'd been waiting for that. Good, he said again, bright and certain. Let's talk somewhere safe, then I'll hit him. Butcher's hands tightened on the wheel. Starlight realized, with a sick drop in her stomach, that she had just pulled two worlds into each other, and neither one was going to back off. The safe house did not look like a superhero base. It looked like a place you'd never notice, a quiet building, a door you'd walk past. No glowing tech, no big screens, no dramatic symbols. But inside, it was locked down like a bunker. Mother's Milk opened the inner door with a gun already raised. His eyes flicked past Starlight, past the white-haired man, straight to Butcher. You didn't say you were bringing company, said, voice tight. Butcher shrugged. Plans change. MM's gaze landed on the white-haired man. The white hair, the swirling mist, the calm grin. And this is… what? Mem asked. The white-haired man waved. Hi. Didn't wave back. From the back of the room, Huey stepped out, eyes wide. Oh my God, he breathed. That's the guy from the street. The road bounce guy. Frenchie appeared beside him, curious like a scientist seeing a new animal. Mon Dieu, Frenchie whispered. He is not Compound V. I can feel it. Kimiko stood in the corner, silent, watching. Her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something inside him. Butcher shut the door and locked it. Then locked it again, like that would stop the sky if it wanted in. He turned to Starlight. Talk. Starlight kept her voice controlled. He dropped out of a rip in the air. He stopped a truck from hitting people. Homelander showed up. Homelander tried to take him. Butcher scoffed. Tried. Starlight nodded. He can bend things, like rubber. He knotted a gun barrel with his fingers. MM's eyes narrowed. Can he be killed? The room went quiet. The white-haired man blinked at like he didn't understand the question. Huey swallowed. Maybe we don't start with that? Butcher's eyes stayed hard. No. We do start with that. Frenchie slid closer, hands half raised in a calming gesture, like he was approaching a stray dog. My friend, he said to the white-haired man. What do we call you? The white-haired man opened his mouth. Then he paused. He looked around the room, taking them in like he was counting heads. He pointed at Butcher. You're angry. Butcher's lip curled. Good observation. He pointed at Huey. You're scared. Huey forced a weak smile. Yeah. He pointed at You're serious. Didn't blink. He pointed at Starlight. You're trying. Starlight's throat tightened. Then he pointed at Kimiko. He held the point there longer, like he felt something familiar. Kimiko stared back, unreadable. The white-haired man smiled softly. You've been hurt. Kimiko's eyes flickered. Just once. The white-haired man lowered his hand. Okay, he said. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. Butcher snorted. That a joke? Luffy shook his head. Nope. MM's voice stayed steady. Where are you from? Luffy grinned, like the answer was obvious. The sea. Frenchie blinked. That is not an answer. Luffy shrugged. A different place, different world. I was in a fight, and then the air broke, and now I'm here. Huey stepped closer, careful. A fight with who? Luffy's face stayed bright, but his eyes sharpened for a second. Strong people, he said. Bad people. I was winning. Butcher stared at him like he was trying to see the weakness hidden under the grin. And what are you? Butcher asked. Exactly. A soup? An alien? A lab accident? Luffy tilted his head. I ate a devil fruit, he said, like that explained everything. The room stared. Huey frowned. What fruit? A devil fruit, Luffy repeated. It gave me powers. I'm rubber. And now I'm more rubber. He bounced his cheeks with his fingers like they were soft. It looked silly. It also looked impossible. Frenchie's eyes lit up like he might faint from excitement. A fruit, he whispered. Not an injection. Not a serum. Looked at Starlight. Is he lying? Starlight shook her head. I don't think so. Butcher stepped forward until he was right in Luffy's space. Listen, Captain Fruitcake, he said, voice low. If you're here to play hero, you picked the worst world for it. Luffy smiled wider. Good. I like hard places. Butcher's eyes narrowed. No, you don't understand. In this world, heroes are weapons with PR teams. They smile while they kill. They do it because they can. Luffy's grin faded again. It didn't vanish, but it cooled. He stared at Butcher. That flying guy, he said. He's like that. Butcher's mouth twisted. Homelander. Yeah. Luffy repeated the name carefully. Homelander. Huey flinched, like even saying it could get them struck by lightning. Moved to a small table. He pulled out a case with basic medical tools and a handheld scanner that looked like it had been built from 3 different devices. Frenchie leaned in. We will test you, he said, almost apologetic. Not to hurt you, to understand. Luffy brightened. Okay. Butcher threw his hands up. You're just okay with that? Luffy nodded. If you're my friends, it's fine. Butcher stared at him like that word friends was a trap. Starlight stepped in. He's not from here. He doesn't know how this works. Butcher pointed at Luffy. That's the problem. Approached Luffy with the scanner. Hold still. Luffy held still. His body swayed slightly, like he was always moving, even when he wasn't. The scanner beeped, then beeped again. Frowned. This isn't reading like Compound V. Frenchie's eyes danced. I told you. It is other. Butcher leaned over Mm's shoulder. Other doesn't make me feel better. Huey shifted. So, you're from another world, and you're a pirate? Luffy's grin came back full force. Yeah, I'm a pirate. Huey's eyes widened. Like, stealing and murdering pirate? Luffy looked confused. No, like freedom pirate. Butcher barked a short laugh. Freedom pirate. Brilliant. Luffy leaned closer to Huey, friendly. What's your name? Huey, Huey said, voice small. Luffy nodded like that was important. Okay, Huey, you're in my crew now. Huey froze. Wait, what? Butcher made a choking sound. No, the hell he isn't. Luffy looked at Butcher. Why not? Butcher jabbed a finger toward Huey. Because he's not joining your imaginary boat club. Luffy crossed his arms. It's not imaginary. Frenchie whispered to He recruits like a child, adopts cats. Kimiko's lips twitched. It was barely there, but Starlight saw it. Starlight exhaled slowly. A tiny piece of the tension broke. Then the lights flickered. Everyone froze. Not because the power went out. Because in their world, flickering lights meant one thing. Someone was close. Mm's voice dropped. Phone's off. Now. Frenchie killed a monitor. Huey fumbled his phone into a drawer. Butcher didn't move. He just stared at the ceiling, jaw set. Luffy looked around, curious. What? Starlight whispered, he might find us. Luffy's grin returned like a switch. Good. Butcher snapped. Stop saying good. Luffy blinked. But he's strong. Butcher stepped in again, eyes sharp. You don't get it. He's not just strong, he's the system. He's the face on every screen. He's the reason people do nothing, because they're scared. Luffy stared at him. Then Luffy said very simply, then I'll make them less scared. The room went quiet again, but in a different way. Not relaxed, focused. Looked at Butcher. What's the plan? Butcher didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on Luffy. Tell me, Butcher said, why you really hit bullies. Luffy shrugged. Because it's wrong. Butcher's lip curled. That's it? Luffy nodded like that was enough. That's it. Starlight watched Butcher's face. She saw the war inside him. The part that wanted to use this stranger like a weapon. The part that hated hope, because hope hurt when it died. Butcher turned away first. Fine, he said. You want to stop bullies? In this world, the biggest bully is Vought. And their golden boy. He looked back at Luffy. You help us, Butcher said. You do what I say when it matters. And maybe you don't get a city full of dead people. Luffy's grin came back, but his eyes stayed serious. I'll help, he said. But I don't follow bullies either. Butcher's smile was thin as a blade. We'll see. From somewhere outside, far away, a roar rolled through the city. Not a sound you could hear with ears. A sound you could feel. Starlight's skin prickled. Homelander was out there, looking. And now, for the first time in a long time, Starlight felt like he might not be the scariest thing in the sky. Vought Tower looked clean from the outside. Glass, steel, light. Inside, it felt like a machine. Stan Edgar stood in a calm office with calm walls and calm art. The calm was the point. A woman in a suit, one of his top people, placed a tablet on the desk. The incident is trending globally. Edgar didn't look surprised. He looked mildly interested. Show me, he said. The video played. The white-haired figure, the rubber street, the knotted gun, the laughter. Then Homelander's face, smiling, and then not smiling. The woman paused the video on Homelander's eyes. Edgar watched for a long moment. That, Edgar said softly, is new. The woman nodded. He isn't in any database. No V records. No hospital history. No lab markers. Nothing. Edgar tapped the screen with one finger. And yet he moved the street. Yes, she said. And he did it casually. Edgar leaned back. What is Homelander saying? He says it's a rogue soupe, she replied. He wants to go public. He wants to make an example. Edgar's eyes stayed on the frozen image of the white-haired man smiling. Of course he does, Edgar said. He stood and walked to the window. The city looked small from here. Do we know what powers? Edgar asked. Elasticity, she said quickly. Reality-bending visuals, but it might just be extreme elasticity, high speed, high durability, possibly some kind of shockwave ability. We also have reports of people feeling pressure, like the air was heavy. Edgar's mouth moved just slightly. Not a smile. Something colder. Not compound V, he said, and not controllable. The woman hesitated. Do you want us to contain him? Edgar didn't turn around. Containment is a word people use when they're scared, he said. I prefer strategy. He faced her again. What do people call him? They don't know, she said. Some are calling him White Wave. Some are calling him Rubber Man. It's messy. Edgar nodded once. Good. Then we name him. We define him. We decide what he is. She swallowed. And if we can't? Edgar's voice stayed calm. Then we make him a threat so the public begs us to remove him. He walked back to the desk. Prepare a response, not just soups. He tapped a folder. Military support, non-lethal options, noise, gas, collateral control, and cameras. The woman nodded. And Homelander? Edgar looked at her like she'd asked if a hurricane should be polite. We manage Homelander, Edgar said. We always do. He picked up the tablet again. He watched the white-haired man bounce, laugh, and move like a living rule breaker. Edgar's eyes narrowed a fraction. And find out where he sleeps, he added. Even gods have habits. The next day, the city woke up in a new mood. People whispered about the white-haired man like he was a rumor that might become a nightmare. Others whispered about him like he was a miracle. Vought's morning shows ran clips on repeat. Homelander stood in front of cameras and promised safety. Starlight stood beside him and read words that tasted wrong in her mouth. We will bring this situation under control, she said. She could feel Homelander's eyes on her, warning her without words. In the safe house, Butcher turned off the TV with a harsh click. They're painting him as a terrorist, Huey said, pale. Already. Rubbed his face. Of course they are. Frenchie paced like a man with too many thoughts. If they cannot own him, they will make the world fear him. Kimiko sat quietly, sharpening a blade that didn't need sharpening. It was something to do with her hands. Luffy sat on the floor like he belonged there, like the safe house was a ship deck. He listened. He didn't pretend to understand everything, but he understood enough. They're lying, he said. Butcher pointed at him. Welcome to America. Luffy frowned. Why do people believe them? Huey answered before anyone else could. Because they're scared. And because Vought controls what they see. Luffy's eyes sharpened. Then we show them something else. Leaned forward. We don't show people anything. We survive. We hit Vought where it hurts. We do it smart. Luffy nodded like that made sense. Okay. What hurts them? Butcher smiled, sharp. Their image, their money, their secrets. Luffy's grin came back. Secrets. Good. Butcher squinted. You like secrets now? Luffy shrugged. No. But if it helps stop bullies, I'll do it. Starlight watched him. She could tell he meant it. He was simple, but not stupid. He had a straight line inside him that didn't bend. That straight line was going to smash into Homelander's world. The safe house door buzzer clicked. Everyone froze. Moved to the peephole. Butcher raised a gun. Starlight's body lit with ready power. Luffy stood up and stretched like he was about to spar. Checked again. It's nobody. It's a package. Butcher didn't lower his gun. That's worse. Frenchie opened the outer door with a tool, careful like he was defusing a bomb. He dragged the package inside. No label. No return address. Butcher stared at it. Vought. Huey swallowed. Or a fan? Butcher rolled his eyes. Yeah, Vaught's a fan. Frenchie sliced it open. Inside was a cheap phone. It buzzed the moment it saw air. Butcher stared at it like it was a snake. Then he answered. A calm voice filled the room. Not Homelander. Not shouting. Worse. Mr. Butcher, the voice said. We have a situation. Butcher's face darkened. Edgar. Stan Edgar's voice stayed smooth. You have something that belongs to the public. Butcher barked a humorless laugh. He doesn't belong to anyone, mate. Edgar paused, just a beat. We will see. Starlight stepped closer, voice tight. What do you want? Edgar's tone didn't change. A peaceful resolution, he said. We are prepared to offer protection, resources, and if your guest is cooperating, privacy. Butcher snorted. Privacy, coming from you. Luffy leaned toward the phone, curious. Who's that? Butcher covered the mic, the man holding Homelander's leash. Luffy's eyes narrowed. Oh. Edgar continued. If you refuse, he said, we will bring him in publicly, and it will be ugly. Butcher spoke into the phone, slow. You come near this place and you'll be cleaning your teeth off the pavement. Edgar didn't react. Mr. Butcher, he said, your threats are predictable. Butcher's knuckles whitened. Edgar's voice cooled further. This is not a negotiation. This is notice. The operation begins today. The line went dead. The room stayed silent. Huey whispered, Operation. Cursed under his breath. They're coming with everything. Starlight stared at Luffy. We have to move. Luffy looked at all of them. He saw fear. He saw anger. He saw tiredness. He smiled anyway. Okay, he said. Let's go meet them. Butcher's eyes flashed. No, you idiot. We don't meet them. We make them chase us. Luffy tilted his head. Why? Because if we meet them, Butcher said, voice hard, they'll make it a show. They'll put civilians in the middle. They'll make you the bad guy. Luffy's grin faded again. They'll use people, he said quietly. Yes, Butcher snapped. That's what they do. Luffy looked down at his hands. His fingers flexed. The air around him felt alive, like it wanted to bounce. Then he looked up. Then we save the people, he said. and I hit the ones who try to use them." Butcher stared at him. For a second, Butcher almost looked like he believed in something. Then he crushed it with his own voice. "Fine," he said. "Here's what we do." They chose the worst place on purpose. A Vought-run community safety event. Bright lights, big banners, free smiles, families everywhere. Vought wanted the city to feel safe under their cape. Butcher wanted Vought on camera, doing what they always did. Starlight hated it. Every part of it. Luffy didn't hate the event itself. He hated the smell of fake kindness. He could feel it, even without knowing the words. They arrived in the chaos before the chaos. Huey stood behind a column, shaking. Kept his eyes moving, always counting exits. Frenchie checked a bag full of gear with hands that moved too fast. Kimiko stayed close to the shadows. Butcher watched the stage like a hunter. Starlight kept her cap low, blending with staff and security until the moment came. And Luffy stood in an alley across the street, bouncing lightly on his heels like he was waiting for a bell to ring. He wasn't in normal shape anymore. The white hair, the mist, the loose, bright energy. He looked like trouble that laughed. "Remember," Starlight whispered into an earpiece, voice tight. "People first." Luffy nodded. "People first." Butcher's voice cut in. "And don't let Homelander bait you." Luffy's grin widened. "I'm gonna bait him." Butcher swore softly. "Of course you are." The stage lights flared. A Vought host walked out with a microphone and a perfect smile. "Welcome, everyone," the host boomed. "Today we celebrate safety, heroism, and the amazing work of—" A shadow passed overhead. The crowd roared. Homelander descended like a king, arriving at his own parade. Beside him came other capes, spaced out for the best camera angles. Homelander smiled and waved. The crowd screamed his name. Starlight felt sick. Homelander raised a hand. The noise calmed like trained animals. His voice filled the plaza, warm and firm. "I know you've all seen the videos," he said. "I know you're worried." People nodded. Some cried. Some clutched their kids. Homelander's smile turned soft. "But you're safe," he said. "Because I'm here." The crowd cheered again. Homelander's eyes scanned the plaza. He wasn't looking for danger. He was looking for the camera spots, the angles. Then his gaze flicked to the rooftop line, and his pupils tightened. He'd sensed something. Starlight felt it too. That pressure, like air getting heavier. Luffy stepped out of the alley. He didn't sneak. He didn't hide. He walked into the open street like it belonged to him. People noticed. Phones turned. A wave of fear ran through the crowd like wind through grass. Homelander's smile stayed wide. "Well," Homelander said loud enough for every mic, "look who decided to show up." Luffy tilted his head up. "Hey," he called, "stop lying to people." A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd, because they didn't know what else to do. Homelander spread his arms. "I'm not lying," he said. "I'm protecting them." Luffy pointed at the kids in the front row. "Then why do they look scared of you?" That landed wrong. Homelander's smile tightened. His eyes narrowed, just enough. Starlight felt her heart pound. She knew that look. The look before the mask slipped. Homelander dipped slightly in the air and floated forward, slow and controlled, like a shark circling. "Name," Homelander said again. "Tell the world." Luffy grinned. "No." The crowd gasped. Homelander laughed. "You think you're funny?" Luffy's grin grew. "Yeah." Homelander's jaw twitched. And then Homelander moved. To the cameras, it looked like a blur. To most people, it was just a gust of wind and a flash of cape. He hit Luffy. A punch meant to break bones, a punch meant to send a message. Luffy's head snapped sideways. The plaza screamed. Then Luffy's face snapped back. He was smiling. He didn't even fall. Homelander's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Luffy leaned forward, cheerful. That was a good one. Homelander hit him again, harder. Luffy's body bent like rubber and popped back like it loved the force. The hit did not do what Homelander wanted it to do. Luffy's smile turned sharp. His arm went black with hockey. It looked like a hard shadow wrapped around his fist. He punched Homelander once. Not fast. Not flashy. Just clean. The air cracked. Homelander shot backward through the open space above the crowd and slammed into a stage screen with a boom that shook the plaza. People screamed and ran. Capes on the stage jolted into motion, trying to control panic. Starlight's eyes went wide, her breath caught. She had never seen anyone hit Homelander like that. Homelander tore himself out of the crushed screen, eyes burning. He hovered higher, trying to regain the above-everyone position. His smile was gone now. He glared down at Luffy like Luffy had insulted his entire existence. "You don't know what you're doing," Homelander growled, voice no longer warm. Luffy looked up, calm. "I do," he said. "I'm stopping a bully." Homelander's eyes flashed red. Starlight shouted into the comms, "Civilians, move them." MM and Huey moved immediately, pulling people away from the center. Frenchie tossed smoke and noise devices to block lines of sight. Kimiko grabbed a falling kid and shoved them behind a concrete barrier. Butcher watched Homelander's face and knew what was coming. He muttered, "He's gonna cook the crowd." Homelander fired his heat vision. A red line cut toward Luffy's head. Luffy's eyes shifted slightly, like he had seen it before it happened. He leaned sideways. The beam grazed past and sliced a metal banner pole in half. It crashed into the crowd. Luffy's arms stretched out like a whip and snapped the falling pole mid-air, splitting it into harmless pieces that scattered like cheap toys. The crowd froze for one beat, shocked. Then panic doubled. Homelander roared, loud enough to shake windows. "Stop moving!" People flinched. Some fell. Luffy's face hardened. He reached down and slapped the street again. The asphalt rippled outward in a wide circle. The ground under the fleeing crowd softened, not enough to trap them, but enough to slow stampeding feet. It turned a deadly rush into a messy stumble. People fell, but they didn't get trampled. They crawled and got up and ran again. Starlight realized what Luffy was doing. He wasn't just fighting. He was controlling the battlefield to protect strangers. Homelander dove again. Luffy bounced upward to meet him, springing off the air like it was solid. They collided above the plaza. The impact boomed like thunder. Homelander grabbed Luffy by the throat and tried to squeeze. Luffy's neck stretched, comically long, then snapped back, still smiling like Homelander was playing a rough game. Homelander's face twisted in rage. Luffy's eyes sharpened. His body spun in a loose, silly motion. Then he hit Homelander with a burst of force that wasn't just his fist. It was haki, an invisible pressure that slammed into Homelander's chest and rattled him in the air. Homelander's mouth opened in surprise, like his body had been hit from inside. He was still strong, he didn't crumble, but he staggered. And in that world, Homelander didn't stagger. The crowd saw it. Cameras saw it. The plaza changed in 1 second. People stopped cheering. They stared like they'd witnessed the sky crack. Homelander looked down and saw the change too. Fear flickered across his face. Not fear of Luffy's fist. Fear of losing the crowd. His eyes darted, calculating. Then his gaze snapped to a little girl near the edge of the panic zone, frozen, separated from her mother by a fallen barricade. Homelander moved so fast the air snapped. He grabbed the girl by the arm and lifted her off the ground like she weighed nothing. The crowd screamed. Starlight's blood turned to ice. "No!" Homelander hovered, holding the child out like a trophy. His smile returned. Not warm, mean. "Everyone calm down," Homelander said, voice sweet again. "Or accidents happen." The girl cried, kicking uselessly. Luffy froze midair. His grin vanished. His eyes went flat, like a storm shutting off all jokes. "That," Luffy said quietly, "is the worst kind of bully." Homelander tilted his head. "Come get her," he taunted. Butcher hissed into the comms. "That's it. He's using a hostage. He's cornering you." Starlight whispered, "Luffy, please." Luffy looked at the girl. Then he looked at Homelander. He breathed in. And then his body changed again, even for Gear 5. His arms puffed and shifted. His form stretched in a way that looked funny, but felt terrifying. He snapped his fingers once. The air popped. Luffy vanished from where he was. Not like teleporting, like launching. He reappeared beside the girl in a blur of bouncing motion, as if space itself had been stretched and snapped. Homelander's eyes widened. Luffy's hand tapped the girl's shoulder. "Hold on," he said softly. Then Luffy's other hand stretched behind Homelander's back, wrapped around Homelander's wrist, and yanked. Homelander's grip loosened by force, not by choice. The girl fell, and Luffy's arm stretched under her like a net, catching her gently. He bounced her once, controlled, and tossed her towards Starlight like passing a ball. Starlight caught the child and held her tight, stunned. Homelander snarled and swung. Luffy twisted, turning his body into a loose ribbon for a split second. The punch passed through empty air. Luffy's fist came up again, black with haki. He punched Homelander in the jaw. Homelander's head snapped back. His body shot upward, out of the plaza airspace, into the open sky. For a heartbeat, the whole crowd saw it clearly. Homelander, the untouchable, launched like he'd been hit by a cannon. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't boo. They just stared, because they didn't know what to do when their god got moved. Homelander stopped himself in the air with brute force and rage. He hovered high, breathing hard, eyes burning. Then the speakers around the plaza crackled. A Vought voice cut in calm, rehearsed. "This is a terrorist attack," the voice said. "Please evacuate in an orderly manner. Vought heroes are responding." Starlight's stomach dropped. "They're flipping it." Butcher muttered, "Told you. Cameras first." Luffy hovered at plaza height, watching civilians scramble. He looked down at the crushed stage, the broken screens, the hurt people trying to crawl away. His jaw tightened. Homelander's voice boomed from above, now fully angry. "You want to be a hero?" he shouted. "Fine. Be one." Then Homelander fired heat vision into the air, not at Luffy, at a support cable holding a heavy lighting rig over the crowd. The cable snapped. The rig began to fall. Starlight's eyes went wide. "No." Luffy's body reacted instantly. He dropped like a stone, then bounced off the ground, then stretched upward with both arms, catching the falling rig like it weighed nothing. But the rig was huge. Metal and lights and sharp edges. Luffy's arms stretched and shook. He gritted his teeth. His feet dug into the rubbery ground he'd made. He held it. He turned his head and shouted, "Run!" People ran. Homelander hovered above, watching, smiling again. Because this was his plan. Make Luffy choose. Fight the god, or save the people. Luffy's eyes burned with anger, but his hands stayed steady on the rig. Starlight realized something sharp and clear. Luffy could beat Homelander in a straight fight, but Homelander didn't want a straight fight. He wanted control. He wanted Luffy to look like the problem. Butcher's voice cut in, urgent. "We're done here. Move, before they box us in." MM and Huey dragged civilians toward exits. Frenchie set small charges to collapse a path and block Vought vehicles. Kimiko moved like a shadow, pulling people out from under wreckage. Luffy slammed the rig down into the soft street, turning the ground into rubber again so it didn't crush anyone. He looked up. Homelander was already pulling back, higher, away from range, away from risk. Homelander called down, loud for every mic. "You see?" he shouted. "He's dangerous. He's destroying the city, and I'm the one keeping you safe." Luffy's eyes narrowed. He wanted to chase. He wanted to finish it. But he saw the people still running, still falling, still scared. He took a breath. Then he did something Homelander did not expect. He smiled at the crowd. Not a show smile, a real one. "It's okay," Luffy called. "Go, I've got you." For a moment, some people slowed. Some looked back. They saw him holding wreckage. They saw him bouncing debris away from them instead of toward them. Confusion flashed on faces. Homelander saw that confusion. His face twisted. He didn't like losing even a single person's belief. So he did what he always did. He left. He shot upward and vanished into the sky, fast enough to make a sound like a whip crack. Vought vehicles rolled in at the edges of the plaza. Loudspeakers ordered people to the exits. Cameras focused on broken screens and rubble. And the headline was already being written. Butcher grabbed Starlight's arm. "We move. Now." Starlight looked at Luffy. "Come on." Luffy stared at the sky where Homelander had disappeared. His smile was gone again. His eyes were serious, almost cold. "Next time," Luffy said quietly. "I'm not letting him use people." Then he turned and bounced toward them, landing beside Butcher with a heavy boing that cracked the sidewalk. Butcher flinched even though he tried not to. "You just made yourself the biggest story on Earth," Butcher growled. Luffy tilted his head. "Good." Butcher's face twisted. "Stop saying." Luffy cut him off. Simple and certain. Now everyone knows he's not unbeatable. Starlight felt a chill. Because Luffy was right. And because she knew what Homelander did when the world stopped clapping. As they slipped into the chaos and smoke and running feet, the city behind them screamed. Not just from fear. From the sound of a universe realizing a new rule had arrived. And in the sky above, far away, Homelander watched the news drones follow the terrorist with white hair. His smile returned, slow and sharp. Not because he was happy, because he had decided this was personal. The city decided what the white-haired stranger was before anyone learned his name. By morning, every screen showed the same clips. The bouncing street, the flying man getting punched, the falling lights, the screaming crowd. Vought played the parts they wanted on repeat. They cut away the moments where the stranger saved people. They zoomed in on broken concrete. They slowed down the crash sounds. They added serious music. A banner ran across the bottom of the screen in bold letters. Rogue Super Terrorist Attacks Family Event. In a bright studio, a smiling host spoke like she was reading from a script written by fear. "Officials say the unknown soup is extremely dangerous," she said. Vought assures the public that Homelander and the Seven are responding. They didn't call him a man. They called him a thing. They didn't say he protected people. They said he threatened order. Starlight watched it from behind a curtain in Vought Tower, with a makeup brush tapping her cheek like a drum. A stylist adjusted her hair. A producer held a tablet with bullet points. "Smile more," the producer said. "You look tense." Starlight forced her face into shape. Her stomach felt tight. On the tablet, a line was highlighted in yellow. "Emphasize public safety. Repeat. We can't allow violence." Another line was underlined twice. "Do not say his real name if asked. We don't know it. Keep him as the rogue." Starlight's eyes flicked to a paused clip on a nearby screen. It showed the white-haired stranger holding up wreckage so people could run. He'd looked happy doing it. Like saving strangers was normal. She swallowed. A door opened behind her. Homelander walked in like he owned the air. He didn't look like he had lost a fight yesterday. His suit was clean. His hair was perfect. His smile was back. But his eyes were not warm. He stood beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Fun day," he said. Starlight didn't answer. Homelander glanced at the screen. The clip showed him flying backward from a punch. His jaw flexed. "They're editing it wrong," he said lightly. Starlight's throat tightened. "They're editing everything wrong." Homelander turned his head slowly. His smile stayed. "Careful, Annie." Her skin prickled at the sound of her real name. "We have a job," he continued, voice calm like a warning wrapped in sugar. "We calm people down. We keep the brand clean. We keep them looking up at us." Starlight looked back at the screen. "He saved people." Homelander's smile twitched. "And he attacked me." "He hit you because you grabbed a kid." Homelander stared at her for a long beat. Then he laughed softly, like she'd said something cute. "Do you want to be the one explaining nuance to the world?" he asked. "Because the world doesn't want nuance. It wants a villain." Starlight felt her hands curl into fists. Homelander leaned in a little closer. "Besides," he whispered, "he embarrassed me." The last word came out heavy. Embarrassed. Like that mattered more than the kid. A producer clapped their hands. "We're live in 2 minutes." Homelander stepped away and lifted his chin, turning into a perfect statue of confidence again. Starlight followed him out, heart pounding, like she was walking onto a stage with a loaded gun pointed at the audience. Across the city, in a quiet building nobody noticed, the people who actually lived in fear were crowded around a cheap TV. Butcher sat in a chair like he wanted to break it. Stood with his arms crossed. Frenchie paced. Kimiko leaned against the wall, still as stone. Huey held a mug with both hands even though he wasn't drinking. And the white-haired stranger Luffy sat on the floor, knees up, watching the screen like it was a puzzle made to annoy him. The TV host said, "Experts warn the public not to approach the suspect." Luffy pointed at the screen. "That's not true." Butcher barked a laugh with no humor. "Welcome to the show." Luffy's eyes stayed on the moving images. "Why are they lying?" Huey swallowed. Because it works." Luffy frowned. "How?" answered, voice steady. "Because people want someone to blame. It makes them feel safe. And Vought tells them who to blame." Luffy stared at the screen again, then at the people in the room. "So they're scared. And Vought uses that." Butcher leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Yeah, and your big punch yesterday?" He jabbed a finger at the TV. "That gave them the biggest gift. They can call you a monster and sell safety like it's a product." Luffy's face tightened. "I didn't hurt those people. But people believe what they're shown," Huey said quietly. "Not what happened." Luffy looked at Huey like that sentence was new pain. Starlight's face flashed on the TV. She smiled, bright and clean, and said words that sounded like a cage. "We can't allow this kind of violence," she said. "Vought will bring this under control." Luffy tilted his head. "She's lying too." Butcher snapped. "She's surviving." Huey flinched at Butcher's tone. "She's trying," Huey said. "She's stuck." Luffy stared at Starlight on the screen. She looked scared. Kimiko's eyes shifted, small and sharp, toward Luffy. Like she understood him understanding. Frenchie stopped pacing. "The question," he said, "is what Vought does next." Butcher's mouth twisted. "They'll hunt him, not because he's dangerous, because he's inconvenient." Nodded. "They'll bring soldiers. They'll bring tools. They'll bring cameras." Luffy's grin showed up again, but it wasn't playful this time. It was stubborn. "Then I'll hit them." Butcher slapped the arm of his chair. "No. Listen to me. You can hit a man. You can't hit a company. You can't punch a headline." Luffy blinked. "Why not?" Butcher leaned closer, voice low. "Because the headline hits back. It makes people hate you. It makes them beg for Homelander." Luffy stared, silent. Huey shifted, then spoke softly. "I know it's stupid," he said. "But this world is built wrong." Luffy looked at him. "Why do you stay?" Huey's face tightened. He thought of someone not in the room. Someone gone. "Because if we don't," Huey said, voice cracking just a little, "no one will stop them." Luffy's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll stop them with you." Butcher rolled his eyes. "You don't even know us." Luffy shrugged. "I know bullies." Butcher's lips curled. "Cute. But that doesn't make you useful." Luffy leaned forward, serious now. "Tell me what to do." That caught Butcher off guard. For a moment, Butcher didn't make a joke. He didn't spit poison. He just stared at Luffy like he was trying to decide if hope was a trap. Then Butcher stood up. "Fine," he said. "You want to help? You follow one rule." Luffy nodded. "Okay." Butcher's eyes hardened. "People first, always, no matter what Homelander does to bait you." Luffy's jaw clenched. He thought of the little girl in Homelander's hand. He nodded again. "People first." Exhaled. "Good. Because Vought is going to test that." Frenchie tapped a laptop and pulled up social feeds. He scrolled fast. "Look," he said. A new video was spreading. A shaky clip from a rooftop. It showed Luffy's white hair, the mist, the bounce. It showed him catching falling rigging. Then, right when Luffy looked up toward the sky, the clip froze and zoomed on his face. A dramatic voiceover was added. He smiled, while chaos happened. The comments below were a war. Some called him a demon. Some called him a hero. Some asked if he was Vought's newest secret weapon. Some begged Homelander to erase him. Luffy stared at the comments like they were insects he couldn't swat. "Why do they hate me?" he asked, quieter. Huey swallowed. "Because they're scared, and because they've been taught to trust the wrong people." Butcher pointed at the laptop. "And because Vought is pushing it." MM's phone buzzed. He checked it, face going tight. "There's going to be a hearing," he said. "Government press conference. They're calling this a national threat." Butcher grinned, sharp. "Perfect. They'll build a cage for him." Luffy blinked. "A cage?" Butcher nodded toward the TV. "They'll make new rules, new teams, new weapons, all with your face on it." Luffy's hands flexed. The air around him seemed to bounce with his mood. Then a calm voice spoke from the laptop speakers. Frenchie had accidentally clicked a live feed. A woman stood at a podium, smiling like she cared. Her voice was soft and strong. "Victoria Newman. Americans deserve safety," she said. "We cannot allow an unknown, superpowered individual to terrorize our communities." Luffy frowned. "She's lying too." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "That one's worse." Newman continued. "We will work with Vought and our federal partners to bring this under control quickly and carefully." Huey's shoulders rose with a tense breath. "Carefully," he repeated under his breath. "Sure." Kimiko's gaze stayed on the screen. Her jaw tightened. She knew that kind of smile. Luffy watched Newman's eyes. He didn't have words for it, but he felt something wrong. Not loud, wrong like Homelander. Quiet wrong, like a knife behind a handshake. The feed ended. The safe house went quiet. Then Frenchie said, "We need to move before they move." Nodded. "And we need a plan that's not just Luffy punches everyone." Butcher's eyes glittered. "We hit Vought where it hurts." Huey frowned. "With what? We can't just walk into Vought Tower." Butcher looked at Frenchie. "What do you have?" Frenchie opened a folder on his laptop. "Maps, port schedules, shipping routes." "Vought moves Compound V through docks," Frenchie said. "Not always, but often. And when they move special things, they move them at night." MM leaned in. "You're saying we hit a shipment?" Frenchie nodded. "We get proof. Real proof. Not rumors, not whispers. Files, containers, names." Butcher smiled wider. "And we use Captain Bouncy here as the distraction." Luffy perked up at Captain, then frowned at distraction. "I'm not bait," he said. Butcher stared him down. "You're a lightning rod, whether you like it or not." Luffy's gaze didn't drop. "People first." Butcher's smile thinned. "Yeah, that's why we do it at the docks. Fewer civilians." Huey rubbed his face. "Docks. Ships." At the word ships, Luffy's eyes lit up. He leaned forward, suddenly excited. "Ships? Ships?" Butcher frowned. "What?" Luffy bounced once, happy. "The sea is close here?" MM's brow furrowed. "Yeah, why?" Luffy grinned. "I need a boat." Butcher blinked. "You need a what?" "A boat," Luffy said like it was obvious. "I'm a captain. I need a ship. And a crew." Huey's eyes widened. "Oh no." Luffy pointed at Huey. "You're already in." Huey squeaked. "I am not." Butcher snapped. "We're not buying you a boat." Luffy's smile faded just a little. "Not buying, finding." Frenchie muttered, half amused. "He is serious." MM sighed. "This is not the time." Butcher's eyes narrowed, thinking. Then he smiled again, slow. "The docks," Butcher said. "Fine. You want a boat? We go to the docks. You get your boat fantasy. We get our evidence." Luffy stared at him, suspicious. "You're making a plan." Butcher nodded. "Welcome to my life." Luffy nodded too. "Okay." Butcher grabbed his coat. "We move tonight." As they started gearing up, Luffy walked to the small window and looked out at the city. The streets were far below. Cars moved like little toys. He wasn't used to a world with this many walls, this many rules, this many lies. He felt anger, but he also felt something else. Challenge. And deep down, he liked challenge. Behind him, Butcher's voice cut through the room. "One more thing." Luffy looked back. Butcher's eyes were hard. "Vought is going to try to make you look bad. They'll put innocent people in the middle if they can." Luffy's face tightened. "Then we stop them." Butcher nodded. "Yeah, we do." And far away, in a calm office, Stan Edgar watched the same clips with a calm face. A scientist stood beside him with a chart full of numbers. "We've analyzed the footage," the scientist said. "His energy profile is inconsistent with any soup we've seen. His physiology doesn't match Compound V." Edgar's eyes stayed on the paused frame of Luffy smiling. "Can we replicate it?" Edgar asked. The scientist hesitated. "No, not now." Edgar nodded once. "Then we don't replicate it." He tapped the desk. "We understand it. We predict it. We control the narrative around it." The scientist swallowed. "Homelander wants to kill him." Edgar's mouth moved slightly. "Homelander wants applause." He turned toward a second screen, showing shipping schedules. "He likes ships," Edgar said quietly, almost to himself. The scientist blinked. "Excuse me?" Edgar pointed to a clip where Luffy's eyes had lit up at the word captain. "He has habits. He has values. He has triggers." Edgar's voice stayed calm. "Cruelty draws him in, and the sea calls him." He looked at his assistant. "Move the special unit to the harbor. Use non-lethal containment tools. Keep cameras ready. And stage it." The assistant nodded. "Stage what?" Edgar didn't smile. "A situation," he said, "where saving people makes him look guilty." And in another part of the tower, Homelander watched the same paused frame. Luffy smiling. Homelander's hands shook with rage he refused to show. He whispered to himself, "I'm going to break you." Then he smoothed his face back into a smile and walked out into the bright hallway like nothing was wrong. The harbor smelled like salt, oil, and metal. Floodlights cut the night into bright squares. Cranes stood tall and still, like huge animals frozen in place. Shipping containers were stacked high like colorful blocks, except these blocks held secrets. Luffy loved it instantly. Not the secrets, the open air, the water, the feel of a place that could lead somewhere. He stood at the edge of a warehouse roof with Butcher, Huey, and Kimiko, looking down at the docks. Luffy leaned forward, eyes bright. "That's the sea," he said. Huey whispered, "Yeah, please don't jump." Luffy grinned. "I might." Butcher shoved binoculars into Huey's hands. "Watch for patrols, cameras, anything with a cape." And Frenchie were on the ground level, moving in shadows near a gate. Frenchie's bag looked too heavy for comfort. MM's posture looked like a man carrying a whole city on his shoulders. Starlight wasn't with them tonight. She'd sent a short message earlier. "I can't be seen. Be careful." Butcher hadn't replied. Luffy crouched, ready like a runner again. "Remember," Butcher muttered. "No hero entrance. We're here for proof." Luffy blinked. "Proof?" Butcher nodded. "Files, names, containers. Anything that shows what Vaught's doing." Luffy's smile thinned. "Okay." Then a shout rose from below. A dock worker had stumbled out of a side door. He was yelling at a Vought security guard. The guard shoved him hard. More guards stepped in. They weren't wearing police badges. They were wearing Vought patches. The worker fell. A guard raised a baton. Luffy's eyes sharpened. Butcher saw it and grabbed Luffy's wrist. "No." Luffy stared at him. "He's hurting him." Butcher's voice stayed low and sharp. "And if you jump in now, you ruin everything. You give them a story. You give them chaos." Luffy's jaw tightened. The mist around him swirled a little faster. Below, the baton came down. Kimiko moved before anyone else. She dropped off the roof with silent control, landing behind a stack of pallets. She didn't rush straight in. She waited. She watched the angles. MM's voice came through the comms. "We've got eyes on the shipment. It's in Warehouse 3. Frenchie whispered. "And there are more guards than normal. Too many." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Vaught's expecting trouble." Huey's voice shook. "Do you think they know we're here?" Butcher didn't answer right away. Luffy stared down at the worker getting hit again. The guard laughed. Luffy's fingers curled. "People first," Luffy said, voice tight. Butcher's grip tightened. "Don't." Luffy looked at him, eyes serious. "If you stop me, you're doing what they do." Butcher froze. Because Luffy wasn't wrong. Butcher hated that. Below, Kimiko moved like a shadow. She slipped behind the closest guard and grabbed his wrist. She twisted, hard. The baton clattered. The guard spun, shocked. Kimiko punched him in the stomach. He folded. She knocked him out fast, clean, and quiet. 2 more guards stepped forward. Kimiko took 1 step back, ready, but she was outnumbered. She could fight. She could win, but she couldn't do it without noise. The workers stared at her like she was a ghost. Then the floodlights shifted. A new light snapped on from the far end of the dock, brighter and whiter than the rest. A loudspeaker crackled. "Attention," a calm voice said. "Unknown hostile soup activity detected. All units, prepare for containment." Butcher's face went still. Huey whispered, "Containment?" Frenchie's voice hissed through the comms. "This is not normal security." NM cursed. "They set this up." Luffy's eyes narrowed. They knew. Butcher's mouth tightened. "Edgar." From the far end of the dock, a line of armored vehicles rolled out, quiet but heavy. Soldiers moved with them, carrying strange gear instead of normal guns. Nets, canisters, tubes, thick foam tanks. And walking in front like a show, 4 people stepped into the light. Not the 7. Something else. A new unit. They wore no capes. Their suits were tactical. Their faces were hard. A woman with a helmet and a backpack full of hoses lifted a hand. Liquid dripped from her gloves, thick and shiny. A man with a wide chest and a metal collar around his neck cracked his shoulders, and the air around him hummed with a low sound, like a speaker warming up. A third figure rolled out a spool of black cable that looked like it could wrap a truck. And behind them, a lean man held a tablet and spoke into a mic, calm like he was reading a menu. "Target is the white-haired anomaly," he said. "Do not engage with ego. Engage with tools. Cameras are live." Cameras. Luffy felt it, the buzzing above. Drones, hidden in the dark. They wanted a show. They wanted him to look like the villain. Butcher's voice went cold. "All right," he muttered. "They've built a stage." Huey swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Luffy stood up straight. He looked down at Kimiko near the worker. He looked at the guards. He looked at the new unit. Then he looked at the sea behind them. A captain didn't leave people behind. Luffy's grin came back, but it wasn't goofy now. It was firm. "We saved them," he said. And before Butcher could grab him again, Luffy jumped. He dropped from the roof like a falling star. He landed on the dock with a huge boing that made the wooden boards ripple like a wave. Everyone froze for a split second. The guards. The workers. The new unit. Kimiko's eyes flicked up, surprised, then steady again. Like she'd expected him to do this. Luffy bent down and helped the hurt workers stand. Gentle. "Go," Luffy said, pointing away. "Run." The workers stumbled back, shocked and terrified, then ran. The calm man with the tablet raised his mic. Target confirmed. The woman with the hoses lifted her arms. Thick, sticky fluid blasted out in a wide arc, like a web made of glue. It wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to trap. Luffy's eyes widened. Ew. The glue hit the dock and spread fast, trying to swallow his feet. Luffy slapped the ground. The dock turned rubbery. The glue bounced. Not off him. Off the dock itself. Like the floor refused to hold it. The woman's eyes widened under her helmet. She adjusted, firing again. Tighter, aiming for Luffy's chest. Luffy stretched his torso sideways like a sheet snapping in the wind. The stream missed and hit a crate behind him instead, sealing it shut with a loud squelch. The man with the humming collar stepped forward. The low sound grew louder. It wasn't music. It was a pressure in the air, a vibration that made teeth ache. Huey winced from the rooftop. Oh my God, my ears. shouted through comms. That's Sonic. They're trying to mess with his senses. Luffy flinched as the sound hit him. His grin slipped. His body wobbled for the first time since arriving. The Sonic Man's eyes narrowed. He feels it. Increase. The sound spiked. Luffy's vision blurred for a beat. The dock lights smeared into bright lines. But then Luffy's eyes hardened. His will rose like a wall. The mist around him surged. The sonic pressure hit him, then met something invisible and heavy pushing back. A few nearby guards stumbled, suddenly dizzy, like the air had become too thick. Huey's eyes widened. "What? Is that?" Butcher whispered. "That's him." Luffy took a slow breath, steadying himself. "Stop," he said, voice calm. Then he moved. He didn't charge in a straight line. He bounced off a shipping container, then off a crane base, then landed behind the Sonic Man like the dock was a trampoline made for him. The Sonic Man spun, startled. Luffy tapped him on the forehead with 2 fingers coated in hard black hockey. Not a punch, a tap. The Sonic Man's knees buckled. His hum cut off. He dropped like a Viclichini switch. The dock went quiet for half a second. Then the cable spool figure swung his arm, and the black cable snapped out like a living snake, whipping toward Luffy's limbs. It wrapped around Luffy's wrist and ankle, tight and fast. The cable figure yanked, trying to pin him. Luffy's arm stretched long. The cable stretched with it, still tight. The figure grunted, surprised. "It holds." The calm man with the tablet spoke into the mic. "Good. Maintain tension. Foam team, now." Soldiers fired canisters. White foam exploded across the dock like snow that burned. It hardened fast, trying to lock Luffy's feet and arms to the ground. Luffy looked down at the foam climbing his legs. His grin returned, wild. "Oh," he said, almost impressed. "You guys planned." Butcher's voice came through, angry and urgent. "Luffy, don't play. We need those files." Frenchie shouted, "Warehouse 3, we are inside. There is a vault." Gunfire cracked in the distance. Not toward Luffy, toward and Frenchie. The trap wasn't just for Luffy. It was for all of them. Luffy's eyes flicked toward Warehouse 3. Then his gaze snapped back to the cable figure and the glue woman. The glue woman fired again, trying to blind him. Luffy opened his mouth. He laughed. Then he did something that made even Butcher go quiet. Luffy slammed both hands down on the dock. The rubber effect spread outward like a wave. The dock, the containers, the crane cables, everything in a wide circle became springy. The foam that was hardening under his feet suddenly lost its grip. It bounced and cracked. The black cable snapped taut, then the rubbery dock yanked back like it had its own mind. The cable figure flew forward, off balance. Luffy grabbed the cable with both hands and yanked. Not just pulling the cable, pulling the whole man like a toy on a string. The cable figure shot toward Luffy. Luffy spun once and flung him sideways into a stack of empty pallets. The pallets exploded outward. The man groaned and stayed down. The glue woman stepped back, raising her hoses again. Luffy's eyes narrowed. He didn't hit her right away. He glanced around and spotted something that made his jaw tighten. A worker group was trapped near a container corner. Vought soldiers had forced them there to clear the area, but it was really to use them as a wall. The workers were crying and shaking, hands up. Luffy's grin vanished. He turned toward the calm man with the tablet. "You're using them," Luffy said. The calm man didn't look guilty. He looked bored. "Collateral management," he said into the mic. "If he cares about civilians, he will slow down." Luffy took one step toward the workers. Soldiers raised foam cannons. The calm man's voice stayed flat. "Fire." The foam blasted toward the workers' feet, trying to lock them in place. Luffy moved faster than the foam. He stretched his arm out, grabbed the air in front of the foam stream, and yanked sideways. The foam stream bent like it was a rope. It sprayed harmlessly into the water instead. The soldiers froze, shocked. Luffy bounced into the middle of them, eyes hard. He didn't punch their heads off. He didn't tear bodies apart. He used the dock like a tool. He slapped the ground again, making it springy under the soldiers' boots. They lost balance, slipped, and fell in piles. He flicked foam guns out of hands like toys. Kimiko moved in, fast and silent, knocking out the ones who tried to get up and reach for weapons again. Huey watched from above, mouth open. He's controlling everything. Butcher muttered, "Yeah, and they're filming it." Above the dock, drones hovered like insects, catching every bounce and crash. Vought would cut it later. They would make it look like an attack. They would remove the workers' faces, remove the soldiers' first strike, remove the fear. They would keep the destruction. Luffy helped the trapped workers stand. "Go," he said again, firm. "Get away." A man in a hard hat stared at him. Who are you?" Luffy hesitated. Butcher had told him not to give the world his real name. Luffy looked at the man and saw honest fear and honest hope fighting in his eyes. Luffy gave a small grin. "A captain," he said. "Just go." The workers ran. The calm man with the tablet watched them go and didn't look upset. He tapped his screen. A new light snapped on. A container door behind Luffy swung open with a loud metallic bang. Inside was a huge machine on a rolling frame, like a cannon made for nets. The machine fired. A net shot out thick, layered, and heavy-lined with metal and sticky strips. It spread wide, aiming to wrap Luffy's whole body. Luffy's eyes widened. Whoa. The net hit him. It wrapped tight. For the first time, Luffy was fully bound. His arms pinned, his legs pinned, his chest wrapped. The net's sticky strips latched to his skin, holding on like angry glue. The calm man lifted the mic. "Target contained." Huey's heart jumped. "No." Butcher's face went cold. "Don't celebrate yet." Luffy's eyes blinked behind the net. Then his grin came back. And it was huge. "Okay," Luffy said, voice muffled. "Now it's fun." The net tightened as its winches pulled. Luffy's body stretched inside it. The net stretched too, but not enough. The metal lines groaned. Luffy inhaled. The air around him pressed outward, heavy and invisible. The guards closest to him stumbled back, suddenly dizzy again. The calm man's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Butcher whispered. "Conqueror." Luffy's will slammed out like a shockwave. Not a visible blast. A feeling that hit the body. Some guards dropped to their knees, shaking, unable to stand. The net's metal lines buckled. Then Luffy moved inside the net like liquid rubber. His body compressed, then expanded in a wild shape, and the net tore apart with a loud, ripping snap. He burst free, mist swirling, eyes bright. "Don't," Luffy said, staring at the calm man, "ever use people." The calm man took one step back for the first time. Then he tapped his tablet again. In the distance, Warehouse 3 erupted with a controlled explosion. Not huge, not enough to level the building, just enough to send fire and smoke into the night sky. Frenchie's voice screamed in comms, "They are burning the vault." MM shouted, "They're destroying evidence." Butcher slammed his fist against the rooftop ledge. Bastards. The explosion wasn't meant to kill Luffy. It was meant to force him to choose again. Fight. Or save. Luffy turned toward the warehouse fire instantly. His face went serious. "People first," he said, more to himself than anyone. He bounced toward the warehouse like a white blur. The calm man shouted into his mic, "He's moving to the fire. Keep cameras on him. Make sure he looks like the cause." Soldiers aimed, but Kimiko and MM's team movement disrupted them. MM and Frenchie sprinted for an exit path, smoke chasing them. Luffy reached the burning warehouse door and slammed both hands into the wall. The wall turned rubbery. He pushed. The door bent outward like soft metal and opened. Heat rolled out. Inside, workers were coughing and stumbling, trapped behind fallen beams. Luffy stretched his arms in, grabbed beams, and lifted them like they were light, bouncing them away so they landed without crushing anyone. He pulled people out in groups, moving fast enough that his hands were everywhere at once. Huey dropped off the roof and ran to help drag workers away from smoke, eyes watering. Butcher followed, cursing, pulling a man free, then shoving him towards safety. For a moment, it looked like hero work. Real hero work. Then Vought drones dipped lower, catching close shots of Luffy in the burning building. The angles were perfect. White-haired terrorist inside a fire. Workers screaming. Smoke and chaos. A story ready to be sold. Luffy carried the last worker out and set him down gently. The worker grabbed Luffy's wrist. "Thank you," he rasped. Luffy nodded once. "Don't let them push you around," he said. The worker laughed weakly, bitter. "Easy for you to say." That hit Luffy harder than a punch. Because it was true. He was strong. They were not. And strength alone wasn't fixing this. A siren wailed close. More vehicles. More soldiers. Butcher grabbed Luffy's shoulder. "We're leaving. Now." Luffy looked back at the dock. The calm man with the tablet was already walking away, protected by soldiers. The glue woman and cable figure were being loaded into vehicles, alive. This wasn't a fight to win. It was a trap to record. Butcher hissed. They got what they wanted. Huey coughed, eyes red. What? What did they want? Frenchie staggered up, soot on his face. He held a small hard drive in his hand like it was a treasure. "I got something," Frenchie said, breathless. "Not enough, but something." MM grabbed him. "Move." They ran into the shadows between containers, slipping past a fence gap Frenchie had cut earlier. Behind them, loudspeakers boomed. "Stay back. Vought is responding to a terrorist incident." The word terrorist echoed over the water like a curse. Luffy stopped at the edge of the pier for half a second and looked out at the sea. It was dark and wide. It promised freedom, but behind him, the city lights screamed control. Butcher yanked him again. "Come on." Luffy followed, but his face wasn't smiling now. Back at their temporary hideout, hours later, the news hit the screens. Rogue soup attacks port multiple injuries, Vought security saves workers. They used clips of Luffy ripping nets. They used the explosion footage. They did not show the workers being beaten before he arrived. They did not show him lifting beams off trapped people. They showed chaos. They showed fear. They showed him smiling in the wrong moments. Luffy stared at the screen, silent. Huey sat beside him, exhausted. "It doesn't matter what you do," Huey whispered. "They'll twist it." Luffy's hands clenched slowly. "So what do we do?" Butcher tossed the hard drive onto the table. "We build a bigger truth than their lies," he said. "We don't win in one punch." MM nodded. "We survive. We plan. We hit again." Frenchie wiped his face. "And they will hit back harder now." Kimiko stared at Luffy. Her eyes said something without words. "You can save people, but you can't save everyone." Luffy looked away from the screen. He looked at Butcher. "Next time," Luffy said, voice low. "I'm stopping the person who makes the traps." Butcher's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said. "That's the point." Miles away, in Vought Tower, Stan Edgar watched the harbor footage with the same calm face as always. A scientist stepped in, holding a sealed bag. "We recovered a sample," the scientist said quietly. "From the net. A few strands, skin cells, enough to study." Edgar nodded once. "Good. And the public response?" the assistant asked. Edgar looked at the screen where Luffy's white hair glowed through smoke. "Split," Edgar said. "Which is exactly where we want it." He turned off the screen. "Now," Edgar said, "we learn how to hold him still." And somewhere in the sky, Homelander hovered over the city alone, watching the harbor news on a billboard screen. His smile was back. But it was not the TV smile. It was the smile of someone who had decided the next time would not be about cameras. It would be about pain. 2 weeks later, the city had a new kind of weather. Not rain. Not snow. Rumors. Some people said the white-haired terrorist lived in the sewers. Some said he slept on rooftops. Some said he was a Vought experiment that escaped. Vought kept feeding the fear. But fear had a problem now. Fear had seen Homelander get moved. So the city split in half. Half the city wanted the Sky God to crush the stranger. The other half whispered something dangerous. Maybe Homelander wasn't the only strong thing anymore. Luffy did not care about the whispers. He cared about what he saw. He moved through the city like he was on patrol, even though nobody gave him a badge. A bus slid on an icy bridge? Luffy stretched the guardrail and made it bounce back into place. A building fire trapped people on the 4th floor? Luffy turned the wall soft and pulled them out like it was paper. A soupe with a VOT badge kicked a homeless man for being in the wrong area? Luffy didn't argue. He grabbed the soupy's ankle and hung him upside down from a streetlight like a rude decoration. Every time, cameras appeared. Every time, VOT chopped the footage into whatever story they wanted. But the raw clips still leaked. And in the raw clips, Luffy's pattern was always the same. People first. Always. The boys had stopped calling it luck. Watched the clips on a cracked tablet in a rented room that smelled like old paint. "He's building a routine," said, tired. Butcher leaned against the wall with arms crossed. "He's making himself a target," he replied. Huey sat on the floor with a notepad, trying to track reports like they were storms on a map. "He's also kind of helping," Huey said. He looked like he didn't want to admit it, but couldn't deny it. Frenchie, bruised from the harbor, held up the hard drive they'd stolen. "We need one clean hit," he said. "One truth so big the lie cannot swallow it." Kimiko stood by the window, eyes scanning the street below. Her posture was calm, but her fingers kept moving, like she was ready to snap into action. Butcher's eyes slid to the corner of the room. Luffy sat there with a coil of rope in his hands, tying knots and undoing them, again and again. He had found the rope at the docks. He said a captain should know knots. He had also found something else. A small fishing boat. Old, ugly, half broken. He loved it anyway. He'd dragged everyone to the harbor at sunrise and pointed like a kid showing off a treasure. "That one," he'd said. Huey had stared. "It's leaking." Luffy had grinned. "Then we fix it." Butcher had groaned like he was being punished by the universe. "We are not fixing a damn boat." Luffy had looked at him. "Serious. It needs a captain." Had rubbed his face. "Why is this important right now?" Luffy's answer had been simple. "Because I need a place that feels like me," he'd said. "And the sea is open. This city feels like a cage." Butcher had muttered, "That's because it is." Still, the boat became their moving hideout. Not because Butcher liked it. Because it worked. A boat could move. A boat could disappear into fog. A boat did not have neighbors that would call the cops. Luffy had named it without asking anyone. "The free boat," he announced. Huey had tried not to laugh. He failed. Butcher had stared at the peeling paint like it personally insulted him. Now, in the rented room, Luffy looked up from the rope. "When do we hit them again?" he asked. Butcher pushed off the wall. "Soon," he said. "But we do it right." Luffy frowned. "Right means people first." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Right means proof first." Luffy stared back. "If proof comes after people get hurt, then proof is useless." Butcher's jaw flexed. He didn't like being corrected. He also didn't like that Luffy wasn't wrong. Frenchie stepped between them before it snapped. "We can do both," he said. "We can save people and steal truth." Nodded. "Vought is planning something bigger. I can feel it." Huey looked up from his notes. "They're moving weird," he said. "More trucks near the river. More private security. More public safety events." Butcher smiled, sharp. "They're building another stage." Luffy's eyes hardened. "Then we break the stage." Kimiko tapped the window glass once, pointing. A black car had been parked across the street for too long. Not a normal car. Clean, dark, patient. Butcher's expression changed instantly. He didn't panic. He got mean. "Pack up," he said. "Now." They moved in, practiced silence. Killed lights. Frenchie grabbed the drive in his bag. Huey shoved papers into a backpack with shaking hands. Kimiko checked the hallway. Luffy just stood there, rope in hand, watching. "Are we running?" he asked. "We're relocating," Butcher snapped. Luffy frowned. "Same thing." Butcher didn't answer. As they slipped down the stairs and out the back, the black car's door opened. A man stepped out. No cape. No gun out in the open. Just a suit and a calm walk. He wasn't there to fight. He was there to talk. Stan Edgar. Butcher saw him and stopped anyway, like his anger pulled him to the ground. M hissed, "Butcher, don't." Butcher ignored him. Edgar didn't look surprised to see them. He looked like a man arriving on time for a meeting he scheduled. "William," Edgar said, like they were old co-workers. Butcher's lips curled. "You're a long way from your tower." Edgar's eyes moved once, taking in the group, then settling on Luffy. He didn't flinch at the white hair, the mist, the strange energy. He simply nodded, like confirming a file photo. "You," Edgar said to Luffy, "are difficult." Luffy tilted his head. "You're the leash guy." Edgar's mouth moved slightly. Almost a smile. That is one way to say it. Butcher stepped forward, blocking Luffy a bit. "Say what you came to say." Edgar's voice stayed calm. "I came to offer you an exit ramp." Butcher laughed. "I'm not interested." Edgar didn't even look at him. He looked at Luffy again. "I can give you 3 things," Edgar said. "Safety from the public, resources, and information." Luffy's eyes narrowed. "Information about what?" Edgar held up one finger. "First, about how to get you home." Huey's breath caught. MM's eyes tightened. Luffy's smile flickered small, quick, dangerous. "Home," Luffy repeated. Edgar nodded. "Yes." Butcher snapped. "Don't listen." Luffy held up a hand without looking at him. "Quiet," he said. "Not rude, just firm." Butcher froze. Huey stared. Even Kimiko's eyes shifted. Luffy looked at Edgar. "What do you want?" Edgar held up a second finger. "Order." Luffy frowned. "Order is what bullies say." Edgar's eyes stayed flat. "Order is what keeps cities alive." Luffy leaned forward a little. "No. People keep cities alive. You just own them." Edgar didn't deny it. He let the silence carry the truth. Then he held up the third finger. "A name," he said. Luffy blinked. "A name?" Edgar nodded. "You are currently a blank. That makes you dangerous to markets and governments. Vought can make you a villain. Or Vought can make you something else." Butcher's voice turned icy. "A brand." Edgar finally glanced at Butcher. "A solution," he corrected. Luffy's eyes narrowed. "I don't want to be a solution. I want to be free." Edgar's voice remained steady. "Freedom is expensive. In this world, it is purchased with leverage." Luffy stared at him, then looked down at the street. A woman walked past with a kid holding her hand. The kid pointed at a billboard of Homelander and smiled like it was a superhero poster. Luffy's jaw tightened. He looked back at Edgar. "You lie. Your flying bully lies. Your world lies." Edgar nodded once. "And yet it functions." Luffy's grin returned, but it was not joyful. It was stubborn. "My world functions too," he said, "and we don't need you." Edgar's eyes stayed on Luffy. "If you refuse, the next operation will not be containment nets. It will be something worse." MM's voice was low. "What worse?" Edgar didn't answer MM. He answered Luffy. "A situation," Edgar said, "where your values become your chain." Luffy's eyes sharpened. "Hostages." Edgar's face did not change. "Collateral," he said. Butcher's hand twitched toward his weapon. Luffy reached out and grabbed Butcher's wrist, stopping him. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't cruel either. It was a captain stopping a crew member from doing something stupid. Luffy looked at Edgar again. "I'm not joining you," he said. Edgar nodded, like he expected that. "Then at least accept the information." Luffy frowned. "Why would you give me that?" Edgar's eyes were calm and hard. "Because," he said, "if you leave, the problem goes away." Luffy stared at him for a long beat. Then Luffy smiled wide again, almost cheerful. "Then you should be happy," Luffy said, "because I don't run from problems." Edgar's gaze cooled. "That is unfortunate." He took a small envelope from his pocket and tossed it onto the ground near Luffy's feet. "Coordinates," Edgar said. "A time, a door, if you want answers." Then he turned and walked back toward the black car like nothing in the world could rush him. Butcher stared at the envelope like it was poison. Huey whispered, "Is it real?" MM said, "It's a trap." Frenchie murmured. It can be both. Luffy stared at the envelope, then picked it up. He didn't open it yet. He looked at Butcher. What do you want? Luffy asked. Butcher's face was tight. I want Homelander dead. Luffy blinked once. Why? Butcher's eyes burned. Because he's a monster, wearing a flag. Luffy nodded slowly. Okay, but if you only want him dead, you'll start hurting people to get there. Butcher's mouth opened, then closed. His anger had no easy comeback. Luffy looked at the rest of them. What do you want? He asked. Mim answered first. I want people safe. Huey swallowed. I want the truth out. I want it to matter. Frenchie shrugged. I want the cage to crack. Kimiko didn't speak, but her eyes said enough. Luffy nodded, absorbing it. Then he opened the envelope. Inside was a printed card. A time, a place, and one sentence at the bottom. Bring the pirate. Come alone. Butcher scoffed. They know what you are now. Luffy stared at the card. No, he said quietly. They think they do. He folded the card and put it in his pocket. We go, Luffy said. Snapped. That's insane. Luffy looked at him. If they're building a trap, we need to see it. We need to break it before people get hurt. Butcher laughed harshly. Listen to him. He's got a hero brain. Luffy's eyes hardened. I have a captain brain. He pointed at Butcher. You can chase revenge later. Right now, people first. Butcher stared at him. Then Butcher did something small but huge. He nodded once. Fine, Butcher said. We go. The time skip didn't make Homelander calmer. It made him worse. He smiled on camera and shook hands and let kids touch his cape. Then he went to quiet rooms and punched walls until they cracked. He replayed the moment of being hit over and over in his head, like it was a bug he couldn't squash. He didn't hate pain. He hated being seen. In a private Vought training hall, he hovered alone, heat vision slicing through steel dummies, turning them into glowing halves. A door opened. Starlight stepped in, cautious. Homelander turned slowly. His eyes were normal. For now. You're late, he said. Starlight kept her voice steady. I had an event. Homelander smiled. You always have an event. Starlight's jaw tightened. What do you want? Homelander floated down until his boots touched the floor. I want you to stop lying to me. Starlight's blood cooled. I don't lie to you. Homelander stepped closer. You helped him, he whispered. Starlight swallowed. I helped civilians. Homelander's smile twitched. Same thing, he said, like it was a joke. Starlight's voice rose. He saved people. You used a child. Homelander's face went blank for a beat. Then his smile returned, slow and sharp. You don't get to judge me, he said. Starlight's eyes flashed with light. I do, because someone has to. Homelander leaned in. Do you know what I see when I look at him? He whispered. I see a crowd looking somewhere else. Starlight said, then be better. Homelander's eyes narrowed. Or I remove the distraction. Starlight's voice went cold. You can't control him. Homelander laughed quietly. I don't need to control him, he said. I need to break him. Starlight felt the chill in those words. Don't, she said. Homelander's smile widened. Watch me. He turned away like the conversation was over. Starlight stood there, breathing hard, realizing something she didn't want to admit. The next time, Homelander wasn't coming to win on camera. He was coming to make a point, and he would use anything. Anyone. The coordinates led to a place that didn't look special. A riverside waste facility. Big pipes, bad smell, empty streets. It was the kind of place people avoided, which meant it was the kind of place Vought loved. The boys didn't come alone, no matter what the envelope said. They came hidden. On a rooftop with binoculars, Frenchie near a side door with tools, Huey in a van with a laptop, shaking so hard he could barely type, Kimiko in the shadow of a container stack. Butcher stayed closest to Luffy, because Butcher didn't trust anyone else to make the hard choice if things went wrong. Luffy walked straight through the front gate like he didn't care about traps. Mist curled around his shoulders. His white hair caught the floodlights like it wanted attention. "You sure you want to be in that form?" Butcher muttered. Luffy shrugged. "This is me when I'm serious and happy." Butcher snorted. "Weird combo." Luffy smiled. "I'm always happy when I can punch bullies." They reached the center yard. A line of soldiers stood waiting, too calm, too prepared. And behind them, a small stage had been built. Not huge, just enough. Just like Butcher said. A stage. Cameras sat on tripods around the yard. Drones hovered above. A live feed truck hummed near the back fence. Vought wasn't hiding this. They were inviting the world to watch. A door in the far wall opened. Stan Edgar walked out first, calm as ever. Then Victoria Newman stepped out beside him, smiling like a politician at a charity event. And then Homelander floated down behind them like a crown returning to its head. The air changed as he arrived. Soldiers stood taller. Drones adjusted angles. The yard felt smaller. Homelander smiled at Luffy like he was greeting a rival athlete. "There you are," Homelander said. Luffy looked at Edgar, then Neumann, then Homelander. "3 bullies," Luffy said simply. Neumann's smile did not break. "That's adorable," she said. "But this is a serious matter." Luffy tilted his head. "Why are there cameras?" Edgar answered. "Because the public deserves to feel safe." Luffy's grin faded. "You mean the public deserves to be fooled?" Homelander laughed. "Still talking like a cartoon," he said. Luffy stared at Homelander. "Still acting like a coward," he replied. The soldiers shifted, uneasy. Homelander's eyes narrowed. "Say that again." Luffy didn't flinch. "Coward," he repeated. "You hide behind people." Homelander's smile vanished. He took one step forward, and the ground seemed to hate him for it. Edgar lifted a hand slightly. "Not yet," he said. Low. Homelander's jaw clenched, but he stopped. Newman stepped forward instead, voice smooth. "We are offering you a path," she said. "Register, cooperate, submit to oversight." Luffy blinked. "Submit?" Newman nodded. "If you are truly here to help, you should welcome structure." Luffy laughed once. Sharp. Structure is just another chain. Edgar's eyes stayed calm. Chains keep dangerous things from hurting people. Luffy's eyes hardened. Chains keep people from leaving. Homelander snapped. "Enough!" He floated up, looming. "I'm done talking." Luffy looked up at him. "Good. Talking is boring." Homelander's face twisted. And then Edgar spoke again, quiet but clear. "Begin," Edgar said. The trap triggered. It wasn't one net. It was the whole yard. The ground under Luffy's feet hummed and flashed. A grid of metal plates rose from the concrete like teeth. Thick cables snapped out from hidden slots. Foam cannons popped up from behind barriers. Sonic towers unfolded like ugly flowers. Luffy's eyes widened. "Wow," he said. "You guys really like cheating." Sonic pressure slammed into him first. Luffy's body wobbled as the vibration hit his bones, trying to shake his focus apart. Foam blasted from 3 angles, aiming for his joints. Cables whipped toward his wrists and ankles. Luffy grimaced. His grin fought to stay. He slapped the ground. But the ground didn't turn rubbery this time. The metal grid resisted, built to stop exactly that. Luffy blinked, surprised for the first time in days. Butcher's voice hissed through the comms. "They built the floor to stop your trick." Luffy's eyes sharpened. "Okay," he said. "Then I'll use a different trick." He inhaled and pushed his will outward. The air grew heavy. Several soldiers staggered, eyes rolling back, dropping like puppets with cut strings. But the sonic towers spiked again, and the pressure wavered. Edgar's eyes stayed on a tablet in his hand. "Adjust," he said calmly. The system adjusted like a machine learning a new dance step. Luffy's jaw clenched. This wasn't a normal fight. This was a cage built by people who didn't care if the city burned, as long as the story stayed clean. Homelander floated above it all, watching like a king watching a gladiator match. Starlight was not here. Not on stage. Not in the hero lineup. And that worried Butcher more than the weapons, because it meant Homelander and Edgar had removed variables, or moved them somewhere else. Huey's voice crackled through comms. "Guys, there's something else, there's a second feed." "What?" MM snapped. Huey's fingers flew over keys. His face went white. "They're broadcasting. A hostage situation," Huey said, voice shaking. "Liv." Butcher's stomach dropped. A second drone feed popped onto MM's tablet. It showed a bus, a school bus, stopped on a bridge, surrounded by VOT security. Kids inside, crying. And on the roof of the bus, Homelander's face appeared in close-up on the camera feed, smiling. Not the Homelander in the yard. A recorded clip. A pre-made message. Homelander's voice boomed from the feed. "If the rogue soup resists lawful containment," Homelander said, "we can't guarantee public safety." Luffy heard the feed through a loudspeaker in the yard, too. He froze. His eyes snapped to the screen. Kids. People. Used like shields. His mist surged. The cables tightened around him, sensing the pause. Homelander floated lower, smiling now, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "See?" Homelander said softly. "You care. That's cute." Luffy's face went flat with anger. Edgar watched Luffy like a scientist watching a reaction. "Your decision will be educational," he said. Luffy looked up at Homelander. Then he looked at Edgar. Then he looked at Neumann, still smiling like this was policy, not cruelty. Luffy's hands clenched so hard the cables groaned. "You're all the same," Luffy said, voice low. "You don't protect people. You own them." Homelander smiled wider. "So what are you going to do, Captain?" The word captain came out mocking. Luffy breathed in. And then he did something that surprised even Butcher. He stopped struggling against the cables. He relaxed. The cables slackened slightly, confused. Luffy smiled again. Not happy. Not playful. Focused. "People first," he said quietly. Then he moved in a way the tools did not predict. His body compressed, then snapped outward like a spring. He didn't need the floor to be rubbery. He made himself the rubber. He stretched through the gaps in the cable loops like liquid, sliding free inch by inch, twisting out of the cage. The foam caught his shoulder and hardened. He laughed once and peeled it off like tape. Sonic towers spiked again, shaking the air. Luffy's eyes narrowed. He coated his skin in hard hockey-like armor under the vibration. He stepped forward. A soldier fired a net cannon. Luffy grabbed the net in midair and swung it like a whip, slamming it into the sonic tower. The tower bent and snapped. The vibration dropped. Another tower fired. Luffy bounced sideways, grabbed a cable, and yanked it hard. The cable ripped the foam cannon out of its mount and sent it flying into a wall. The whole yard began to break apart. Not because Luffy was destroying it for fun, because he was dismantling a trap. Homelander's smile slipped. He shot down toward Luffy, fists clenched. "Enough." Luffy looked up. "Finally," he said. They collided midair above the yard. This time, there was no crowd between them. No stage lights. No applause. Just two monsters with different rules. Homelander hit first, fast and brutal. A punch into Luffy's ribs that would turn a normal person into paste. Luffy's body bent, absorbed it, and snapped back. He grabbed Homelander's wrist and twisted, using the spin to sling Homelander into a stack of steel plates. The plates exploded outward. Homelander tore through them, furious, and fired heat vision point blank. Luffy's head snapped sideways. The beam sliced past his face and cut a tower clean in half behind him. Luffy's eyes flashed. He slammed his fist into Homelander's chest with a deep hockey hit that made the air pop. Homelander choked and shot backward. He didn't fall. He never fell for long. He surged forward again, grabbing Luffy by the throat, squeezing, trying to crush. Luffy's neck stretched and snapped back, but his eyes stayed hard. He grabbed Homelander's cape and yanked. The cape tore. Homelander's eyes widened in pure shock. That cape wasn't just cloth. It was identity. The yard below gasped. Soldiers stared. Cameras caught it. Homelander's face twisted into something ugly. He screamed and slammed Luffy down toward the ground. Luffy hit hard enough to crack the metal grid. He bounced up anyway, like the impact fed him. Homelander hovered above, breathing hard, eyes glowing. "You think you're a hero," Homelander hissed. "You're a freak in my sky." Luffy wiped dust from his cheek like it annoyed him. "I'm not a hero," Luffy said. "I'm a pirate." Newman's smile finally twitched. Edgar's eyes narrowed a fraction. Homelander scoffed. "A pirate? Great. Then you steal." Luffy pointed at the hostage feed screen. "You steal people." Homelander's eyes flashed red. Luffy's voice rose, loud enough for the mics. "Hey," he shouted toward the cameras. "My name is Monkey D. Luffy." The yard froze for a split second. A name. A real name. Not a label? Luffy's voice stayed clear. "I don't work for Vought. I don't follow your rules. And I'm not letting you use kids." Butcher's eyes widened. "He just gave them his name." MM muttered. "He just gave the world a person." Huey whispered, "That might actually matter." Homelander roared and dove again. Luffy met him head on. This time Luffy didn't just trade blows. He grabbed the air in front of Homelander's face and yanked sideways like he was pulling a curtain. The space warped for a split second. Homelander's charge veered. Luffy used the opening and landed a heavy hockey punch to Homelander's jaw. Homelander's head snapped back. Luffy followed with another hit, clean, hard, honest. Homelander shot downward, slammed into the grid, and skidded, leaving a trench in metal. For a breath, Homelander stayed down. The yard fell silent. Cameras kept rolling. Edgar's calm face didn't crack, but his fingers tightened on the tablet. Newman's eyes flicked away, calculating damage control. Luffy landed and looked toward the bridge feed. "Where is it?" he demanded. Edgar looked at him. "You're making choices impulsively," Edgar said. "That is your flaw." Luffy's eyes burned. "Tell me where." Edgar didn't answer. Homelander rose from the grid, slower now, cape torn, face bruised, eyes lit with rage. He didn't look like a god. He looked like a man who couldn't handle being seen as a man. "You're not leaving," Homelander growled. "I don't care about cameras anymore." Luffy's gaze stayed on Homelander for 1 second. Then he looked at Butcher's hidden direction, like he could sense him. "People first," Luffy said again, softer. Then Luffy vanished. Not teleport. A launch. A bounce that turned into a blur. He shot over the fence, over the river, and into the night. Homelander screamed and surged after him. Butcher shouted into comms, "Huey, find the damn bridge!" Huey's fingers flew. He traced the video feed metadata, trembling. "West," Huey gasped. "West Bridge. 2 miles." MM was already moving, sprinting for a vehicle. Frenchie grabbed his bag. "We go." Kimiko moved like a shadow beside them. In the sky, Luffy and Homelander turned into streaks. They reached the bridge in seconds. The bus sat there, headlights on, trapped by Vought vans. Kids pressed against windows, crying. Luffy dropped onto the bridge deck with a heavy boing that made the metal railing vibrate. Vought guards raised weapons. Luffy's eyes snapped to them, and his will hit like a wave. Several guards froze, then dropped, shaking. Luffy sprinted to the bus door and yanked it open gently. "Out," he said, voice firm but warm. "Go to your parents. Run." The kids hesitated. They saw the mist, the white hair, the weird smile. Then they saw his eyes. Not cruel, not hungry, just certain. They ran. Homelander landed on the bridge with a boom, cracking the asphalt. He looked at the emptying bus and screamed in rage. "You ruin everything," Homelander roared. Luffy stepped between Homelander and the last kid. His voice was calm. "Good." Homelander fired heat vision at Luffy's head. Luffy leaned, and the beam sliced the bus in half instead, turning it into burning scrap. Homelander didn't care. He wanted destruction now, because destruction felt like control. Luffy's face hardened. He moved. He hit Homelander with a punch coated in hockey that slammed him backward, away from the kids. Then another. Homelander grabbed Luffy's arm and tried to crush it. Luffy's arms stretched, then snapped back and wrapped around Homelander's torso like a rubber band. He yanked. Homelander flew forward, off balance. Luffy slammed him down onto the bridge deck and held him there, one hand on Homelander's chest, the other raised. Homelander's eyes burned red. "Do it," he hissed. "Kill me. Show them what you are." Luffy's fist trembled, not from weakness, but from choice. Butcher arrived at the bridge edge with Frenchie, Huey, and Kimiko. They saw Luffy pinning Homelander. They saw Homelander baiting him. Butcher's breath caught. Because this was the moment. Kill the monster. Or keep the line. Luffy stared into Homelander's eyes. He didn't see a god. He saw a bully who needed worship like air. Luffy lowered his fist. "I'm not like you," Luffy said. Homelander's smile flickered relief, then disgust. "Then you lose," Homelander spat. Luffy's eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "You lose." He grabbed Homelander's cape stump and yanked him close, so only Homelander could hear the next words. "If you touch kids again," Luffy said softly, "I will hit you until you can't stand." Homelander's eyes widened, then narrowed with hate. Luffy released him and stepped back. Homelander shot upward instantly, escaping into the night like a wounded animal that still had teeth. He didn't say a heroic line. He didn't wave. He ran. The bridge was a mess. The bus burned. Sirens wailed in the distance. But the kids were alive. Huey stared up at the sky, shaking. He left. Butcher's jaw tightened. "He'll come back," he said. Frenchie held up his bag. "Now," he said, eyes bright with urgency, "we do the other part." He pulled out the hard drive and a small transmitter. Frowned. "Here?" Frenchie nodded. "We have a live event. We have cameras. We have the story breaking." Huey swallowed hard, then stepped forward. "I can route it," he said. "If I can get a signal." Kimiko moved silently to a Vought van and yanked open a panel, ripping out wiring like it was paper. She handed Huey a cable without a word. Huey plugged in, hands shaking, eyes locked on his screen. Butcher watched Luffy, still breathing hard, mist curling. "You didn't kill him," Butcher said, voice like gravel. Luffy looked at him. "No." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Luffy answered simply. "Because killing him doesn't fix the cage." Butcher's face tightened. He hated the logic. He also knew it was true. Huey's laptop beeped. "I'm in," he said, voice shaky. "We can push a broadcast." Frenchie nodded. "Then we show them." Butcher hesitated, then nodded once. "Do it." Huey hit enter. Across the city, screens flickered. Vought newsfeeds cut for 1 second. Then a new video filled the airwaves. Files. Footage. Names. The harbor shipments. The lab rooms. The workers beaten. The staged traps. The truth. Raw and ugly. Not enough to destroy everything, but enough to crack the mask. People watched. And for the first time in a long time, the story wasn't fully Vaught's. Luffy stared at one billboard screen showing his face beside the words, "Rogue Soup." Then the billboard glitched. The label vanished. For a moment, the screen showed something else. A clip of him lifting the beam off trapped workers. A clip of him catching the kid. A clip of him shouting his name. Monkey D. Luffy. A person. Not a thing. Butcher exhaled through his nose. Almost a laugh. "All right," Butcher muttered. "Captain, maybe you're not useless." Luffy grinned again, finally playful. "I know." Butcher rolled his eyes. "Don't get cocky." Luffy looked at the burning bus, then the kids being carried to safety, then the city beyond. "I'm not cocky," Luffy said. "I'm just not scared." Watched the sirens closing in. "We need to move," he said. "Vought will respond." Butcher nodded. "Back to the boat." Luffy's eyes lit up. "My boat." Huey groaned. "Our boat." Kimiko's lips twitched again. This time it was clearer. Starlight watched the broadcast from inside Vought Tower, hidden in a back hallway, heart pounding. When she saw the lab footage on screen, her stomach dropped. When she saw Luffy saving kids, her eyes burned. When she saw Homelander fly away, something inside her finally snapped into place. She wasn't going to be a billboard anymore. She whispered into a burner phone, voice shaking but steady. "I'm done," she said, and she walked away from the bright halls, into the dark, toward the only people left who were trying to do something real. The water was calm that night. The city still screamed in the distance, sirens, news, helicopters, but out on the harbor, the waves moved like they didn't care. Luffy sat on the edge of the freeboat with his feet dangling above the black water. The paint was still peeling. The boat still leaked a little. Frenchie had fixed the worst of it with tape and stubbornness. It was not a grand ship, but it floated, and it was his. Behind him, Butcher sat on a crate with a cigarette he didn't light. Checked supplies. Huey typed frantic notes like he was trying to hold the world together with words. Frenchie cleaned a tool. Kimiko stood near the bow, watching the water like it was a door. Starlight arrived quietly, stepping from a small dock onto the boat without anyone making a big speech about it. Butcher looked up, surprised for half a second. Then he snorted. "Well, look who grew a spine." Starlight's eyes flashed, but her voice stayed controlled. "Shut up." Butcher smiled like he approved. Luffy looked at Starlight, grinned soft. "You came." Starlight nodded. "I couldn't keep pretending," she said. Luffy tilted his head. "Good." Starlight sat down near him, careful. She watched his face, the mist, the strange calm. "You could have killed him," she said quietly. Luffy stared at the water. "Yeah." "Why didn't you?" she asked. Luffy shrugged. "Because he wants that," he said. "He wants the world to see me as a monster." Starlight swallowed. "He's going to come for you." Luffy's smile returned, small and stubborn. "Let him." Huey looked up from his laptop. He might come for all of us," Huey said. Luffy pointed at Huey. "Crew protects crew." Huey sighed. "I never agreed to." Butcher cut in. "You're in," he said flatly. "Get over it." Huey stared. Did you just... Butcher waved him off. "Don't make it weird." Kimiko looked at Luffy, then at the city lights. She tapped her chest once, then pointed outward, like asking a simple question. "Why do you keep doing this?" Luffy met her eyes. "Because people deserve to smile," he said softly. "Not just on billboards, real smiles." Kimiko's gaze held for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Leaned on the railing, looking tired but calmer than usual. "The broadcast shook them," he said. "Not enough, but it shook them." Frenchie nodded. "Truth is slow," he said, "but it grows." Butcher stared at the city, jaw tight. "Vought will hit back," he said. "Edgar will hit back. Newman will hit back." Starlight's voice was low. "And Homelander is worse now," she said. "He's not going to care about the mask." Luffy's grin widened slightly. "Then we don't let him use it," he said. Butcher glanced at him. "You really think you can fix this place?" Luffy stared at the water again. He didn't speak like a politician. He didn't speak like a strategist. He spoke like a captain. "I can't fix everything," he said, "but I can stop the worst bullies, and I can help my friends." Huey whispered, "That's actually the best plan I've ever heard." Butcher snorted. "It's a stupid plan." Luffy looked at Butcher. "Yeah," he said happily. "Stupid plans are the best." Butcher tried to stay angry. He failed. A helicopter passed far overhead, searching the docks. The freeboat drifted deeper into shadow. On a billboard across the water, Vought tried to regain control. A new message flashed. "Vought protects you. Trust the Seven." For a moment, the billboard glitched again. Someone, maybe Huey, maybe Frenchie, had left a crack in the feed. A second message flashed under it for half a second, barely there, like a whisper. "Monkey, de Luffy saved them." The helicopter moved on. The city kept screaming, but on the boat, the air was quieter. Luffy leaned back, hands behind his head, staring at the dark sky. "This world is weird," he said. Starlight gave a tired laugh. "Yeah." Luffy smiled. "But it has good people." He turned his head toward them, his new messy crew. "We'll keep going," he said, simple and certain. Butcher stared out at the city, eyes hard, voice low. "Yeah," Butcher said. "We will." And somewhere high above the skyline, hidden in the dark clouds, Homelander hovered alone. He watched the screens. He watched the name spread. He watched the fear split. His hands clenched. His eyes burned. And for the first time, the Sky God did not look like a savior. He looked like a man who had lost control. Down on the water, a small broken boat drifted forward. Not fast, not loud, but steady. A captain sat on its edge, smiling at a world that wanted him to be scared. And he wasn't.